And I'm Eric Mitchell. Happy Tuesday, folks. It's Tuesday, September 28th. And oh, do we get a doozy for you going on today in the news? We've got the first presidential debate tonight, squaring off Joe Biden, Vice President Joe Biden versus President Donald J. Trump. Oh boy, if you think things divide our nation now, just wait till people watch that. We had an amazing week 3 completed in the NFL. So we'll have more on that on our Thursday show, which we've coined Two Average Joes and a Pro. So we're looking forward to having that back. Hopefully you guys enjoyed last Thursday's show. I know I did. So today's show, we're going to talk about mindset and overcoming in failure and things that'll help you in business and your personal brand. Branding is all the thing in 2020 and 2021. We have two experts on our show today to talk about how things that are going on in today's business world can help you with everything that you're doing, and including in your personal life, because personal brand has never been bigger. If you own a small business, large, medium, it really doesn't matter. Even if you're a mom and pop shop, your personal brand should be just like your brand. You should be known because people are going to go look for you and see what you're saying and what you're doing. And your business will need to stick out. You'll have to have a good story. As one of my good friends and former guest on this show said just recently in a tweet, the day and time for you just to say what you do is over. You have to tell a good story and let it be shared with the world. Shout out to Brian Fanzo at iSocialFans for that amazing quote and insight. The man truly is a futurist and knows what he's talking about. Shout out to Brian. So that leads me to what we're going to be talking about and what's going on in the world. As you guys know, just last week, the grand jury came back on a verdict on Breonna Taylor. Charging one police officer, with nothing. And it's not that behavior that I'm talking about. It's the behavior of people on social media immediately after. That is where we have the issue with people, places, and things. Now, our show gets mimicked and copied all over the place. We have competitors. And in fact, when we launch a sports show, they launch a sports show. The difference is we don't have two Staten Island bookies running their mouth without actually knowing a thing about sports. Being able to do point spreads, well, I can do that too. It's called Watch Barstool Sports, and you can pick up on the same bets that they're laying down. The difference is talking about actually what goes on in fantasy football and on the field and actually having pros that you can talk to. It also goes with the content that we put on our show. We put on original shows. We don't give opinions of others. We let the world make the decision as we go. And that's what we're going to do when we talk about mindset and growth. You know how I always like to make sure that we include things about athletes and can stray things between military and pro sports. Well, today, that's what we're going to be talking about. Those two things. Because mindset in business sets you everywhere. But everybody has this conception that those who made it to the top got lucky. You hear that all over the place. And it's disturbing that people think that in this belief and in this world that you could go around and you just got lucky. You got lucky to be where you're at. Gary Vee got lucky. Grant Cardone got lucky. Ed Milet got lucky. Lewis Howes got lucky. No, not one of those people got lucky. They worked hard to get where they're at, and they're still working hard. Everybody who is trying to make it in this world is working hard. Now, there are people who sit there on the sidelines and just cry and whine and moan that, oh, it should be me, and blame others for their lack of success. It's like blaming a bad rotation in sports or blaming injuries for why your team can't be successful, or after a game, blaming it on the referees, unless you are a Portland Trailblazers and generally you're screwed by the referees because that's just how it goes. But my point is today's show is dedicated to those who work hard, overcome challenges. Both of our guests today have overcome challenges. Both of them in the right mind are leaders of industry. Our first guest today is the amazing Glenn Lundy, who's going to come on and talk about exactly what he's built for his brand. And then we have LinkedIn expert and former LinkedIn employee and now just general marketing guru, the amazing veteran from the United States Army, Coca Sexton. So we're going to have more and welcome our guests to today's show, coming up after the break.
Long gone
To the point, as always, I'm your host, Eric Mitchell. We have a good show for you. Like I led off with at the beginning, a great first guest today. I'm excited for our first guest, and he's located in one of my favorite basketball towns. And if you are watching the NBA, you know all about Lexington, Kentucky. We all know that UK there. So come on, we gotta give love to hoop. You know me, we're always gonna have some sort of sports tie-in. You know, I'm not gonna remind you that every Thursday we do our sports book show here on To the Point. But anyway, so let's welcome to the show today's amazing guest. I'm excited to bring our guest on. So let's welcome Glenn Lundy to the show. Glenn, how are you doing today, bud?
Man, incredible, Eric. I appreciate you sharing the space and time with me, man. Happy to be here.
I love it. So you have a show yourself, right? I mean, so we're both kind of in the same broadcasting. And you said 700 episodes. Man.
Yeah, 713 episodes as of this morning.
That's a lot of content, my friend. I mean, we've done almost 200. And I look at 700, and I was complaining earlier, like, man, I wonder why I feel burned out. And I'm like, we've done 200. I've uploaded 200 to YouTube. So that's a lot of content. 713. Woo-hoo. That's a lot.
Yeah, man. 5:30 a.m. live Monday through Friday for the last 2.5 years.
All right, I'm no longer complaining about our airtime at 5 p.m. weekdays on Biz TV. No shameless plugging going on here at all between two people who host shows on the Daily World.
Not
Let's
at
plug
all.
away
Not
when
at
you
all.
should tune in. And you don't compete in our airtime, so go ahead and tell folks when they... No, just kidding. We'll get that at the end of the show. But, let's jump into this. So your background is inspiring and leading others, which is a passion, of course, of mine, being a military guy and coming out of the startup community. Being a good leader is a very important thing. We've seen leadership in 2020 challenged all over the place. One of the biggest things is companies have had to make cuts. And some companies have done good. Their CEOs have taken a cut and kept their employees, even if they have to furlough them. They're doing their best. I've seen restaurants. I work with some incredible folks who even own pizzerias across the country. And their big push is to make sure, even if they give them minimum hours because that's all they can afford, so they can still get their unemployment but still earn that money. So I've loved seeing good leadership, but we've seen bad leadership. So before we jump into good and bad leadership, I want to know what inspired you to influence and motivate others. That's an important base point to get started off of how to do that. With me, people pretty much know why I love leadership. They go, oh, that Marine in him. And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty true. And sports. Those two things, as we all know, leadership and sports, military, they're very much aligned. That's why we have the great Nate Boyer, who has combined that with his MVP program, where he takes professional athletes that are retiring, puts them in with veterans, puts them into a blender together, and you get two amazing products, and it motivates. We're very much alike with the teamwork. So tell us what inspired you and influenced you to become a leader in this space.
Yeah, man. Eric, I spent a season of my life homeless. I was homeless for a little while in San Diego, California. And a lot of people think homelessness, they think, the worst part is maybe you're hungry, you're broke, you don't have a place to stay, right? You would think those are the worst things. But really the worst part about homelessness was you become invisible, like literally invisible. People won't make eye contact with you. They look right through you. You start to blend. And so as I was able to pull myself out of that situation and I started to have success in the auto industry, I made it. It was incredibly important to me that no one ever felt invisible. I didn't want people to feel invisible. That leads to hopelessness, which leads to depression, which leads to so on and so many things. And so that was really what sparked it for me, is I was like, how do I make each individual, as my company was growing massively, we grew 800% in 5 years, how do I make sure that every individual feels seen, noticed, visible, has value, has worth? And that really was kind of the kickoff for my dive into this understanding and appreciation for leadership.
I love it, because I think that's key when you talk about leadership, and there has to be a reason for it. And being homeless, we've interviewed the amazing Jasmine Booth, who was a major in the United States. She'll probably kill me. I think she actually got out as a lieutenant colonel. So apologize, Jazz. But she runs Final Salute Inc., which their mission is to get female veterans off the street. So being homeless, she actually has shared her homeless story. So I feel what you're talking about. It's one of those things where that's the epitome of bottom. And I've almost been there. I think a lot of successful people have almost hit, It's like you have to hit rock bottom, and I don't know what it is about folks who get in the leadership space.
Sure.
It's like we need to be reality checked to the lowest denominator until you're like, I guess I should fix my crap, right? We should buck up and get to work here. I don't know why you need to hit the
No
ground, and
doubt.
some of us hit the ground and have to do that bounce where you do it like twice just to be like, reminder, like you still haven't learned. So it's funny. So you mentioned that you work in the automobile industry. That's that's an interesting industry to be in. Always has a reputation, as you know. Everybody either loves or hates their car salespeople. Either loves or
Sure.
hates their experience. I will tell you, I've had a great experience. I'm a very loyal Toyota customer. I love the dealership I work with. I love the folks I work with, and it's very easy, in and out, no problems. But I've had nightmares in my younger years. I know my friends still have nightmares in their younger years. That's why when you find a good car dealership that knows and puts the customer first, you win. So you help. So to understand what you do, you help dealerships grow. I mean, kind of break down what you do so we can kind of let the audience here understand what Glenn does.
Yeah, sure. So I have 2 seasons in the auto industry. I have one season where I worked over 7 years at the dealership that you were just talking about, the one with all the negative stigmas and all the slimy and the sleazy and all of that. I spent 7 years in that dealership with zero growth. We did not grow at all. It was a rotating door with our people. People weren't valued. It was awful. I have the second season, which is where after going through homelessness, after moving across the country to Kentucky, after meeting my wife, who we now have 7 going on 8 children together, right? After all of those things, when I got back into the auto industry, I was like, you know what? I am going to eradicate the negative stigma associated with the car business. And with that mindset, we went in, we flipped the industry upside down, literally did 180 degrees on the opposite side of what people hate about it. And we were able to grow 800%, becoming the second largest dealership in the country. So I left there 2 years ago, and now I work with owners and general managers of dealerships all across the United States and Canada to help them get those same results, increase their volume, their profitability, their employee retention, and ultimately the overall culture in their dealership.
That is awesome, because I'm sitting here and I've been checking out your website before you had on. Obviously, you have a beautiful website. People should go check it out. It's really easy, GlennLundy.com. You can't forget that, and it's awesome. So, the car business. Let's talk about, 2020 has been good and bad. Now, we bought my wife a car recently, just down the street from our house. Great experience. We bought it in July, so in the middle of COVID-19. And I asked the question. We were sitting there. And it was funny because we had bought my truck, my Butte. I love my truck. Sorry. Anybody who knows me knows I talk about my truck like it's part of the family. It has a name and everything. But when we bought it a year ago, obviously the experience was different because the dealership was able to be right in front of you. It was different going in and getting a car. Still great experience, just different. Like you go on your own test drive. Like they're talking to you from like across the room, which was really funny. Like they're
Right.
from a chair. He's like from this little desk talking, and it's like a PowerPoint presentation to do everything. And we're like, am I looking at the screen or you? I don't know who I'm talking to. I felt bad for him,
Right.
but I asked the question. I said, "Hey, how's it been?" And he says, "We've done really well. It was slow, kind of right when COVID hit, but then it picked up." Now, have you seen that nationwide? I mean, with dealerships, is that pretty nationwide? I'm hoping it's just my dealership. I love my guys there. They do a great job. It's great to go in there and they treat me like a king. But have you seen
Sure.
that nationwide? Are you seeing that most of these dealerships have adapted to this social distancing and people are still buying cars? I see a lot of cars on the road with brand new stickers on them. So I'm going to guess that it's a yes, but you see it as a nationwide thing. I'm just looking here on the Pacific Northwest and the West Coast. So are you seeing the same thing? Are dealerships pivoting very well?
Yeah, so overall, the manufacturers are all down, right? Toyota's down 23%, Honda's down 22%, Subaru's down 17%. In the foreign markets, we're down quite a bit just because of inventory shortages, because these plants had to shut down for 8 weeks. You've got parts coming in from China and other areas of the world. So overall, the manufacturers are down. However, there are many independent dealerships that have been able to make the pivot and the shift over into the used car market. And they're really being able to service a brand new influx of customers. So pre-COVID, Uber, Lyft, rideshare, mass transit, people were going away from the personal vehicle, like in droves. It was a mass exodus. This thing hits, now people are like, I don't want to ride in a car with anybody else. I need my own car. People are starting to realize like they're moving out of the metropolitan areas and they're going, okay, I can live in Iowa and I don't have to pay ridiculous rent charges. And I can still work from home via Zoom and so on and so forth. So an influx of buyers mixed with a lot of used car inventory that we had kind of left over really set up the individual stores to have an opportunity to thrive during this season.
That is awesome. See, that is the key. Because I asked the question, and their response before we go to break was, and maybe you can come back, or we come back, we'll talk about it. But their response was, funny, people all got this $2,500 in their family, right? And if you were well off, you were keeping your job, but you qualified for it. People were using that for down payment. Even like some kids. I mean, I know we have a child that's over 23, and he needed a car to use it as a down payment because he had his tax return come in. It was like extra money. I mean, he kept his job, but they still sent it to him. He was like, well, I might as well. He's like, my bills are paid up. I need a down payment, free money. I was like, hey, if it kept people going, because I always look at it that way because there's so many people who don't. But hey, when we come back from the break, everybody, we'll continue more of our conversation with the amazing Glenn Lundy. So we're here with Glenn Lundy, and Glenn, you're just talking about your show, Rise and Grind, and it's such an inspiration because you talk about baby steps, and I think that's a lot of folks are out there creating content. We both know that there's a lot of people. The great Gary Vee talks about creating some outrageous number of amounts of content, pieces of content a day, and Gary does a darn good job about it. You also mentioned Grant Cardone, who also is, if you want to talk about producing content, that man produces a ton of content. We've
no doubt.
I'm very familiar with Grant. I've been able to speak at events with Grant. Grant is a leader of industry. Gotta love what the dude does in space. Really gets into people's heads just like Gary does. Ed Milet, same thing. All these folks that are just up and comers, and there's other guys like Mike Rock who's been on our show. Other amazing folks. But what was interesting is you said the same thing, and I agree. I kind of was snickering off camera because you said something interesting. It helped get you on task, right? Which, as a host of a show, I feel that because it does. You come on and you're like, I'm going to get, this kind of gets you set for your day. I know what I'm doing, and I know when I have my show on, and I get to talk to people. And it's cool because you get to learn more about other folks. And the one thing I'll do this, and we'll continue, I like this topic, is can you list a leader that quit? I can't think of a great leader that we look at today that's quit. Not Gary, not Grant, not Ed, not Lewis, not John Lee Dumas. The list goes on. And I always challenge people, and I'll ask you, do you know of a successful person today that quit?
Not one.
I can't think of one. So if you're out there and you're watching and you could think of one, please go ahead, tag our show and tag Glenn, and we'll high five you. I don't know what we'll do. We'll both put you on our show so you can tell us. If you could list a huge name that quit. I can't think of anyone. And I'm not talking retire. So don't say Barry Sanders or Megatron from Detroit. That's cheating. That's retiring because you have no offensive line. That's why they would play.
But even after they retire, they tend to do other things, you find, all those champions, they move to the next thing. Like, look at Jordan, he's still doing business, and Magic doing business, like all of the greats, they don't ever just stop and lay down. They constantly are creating something new.
Yeah. And it's funny you bring up MJ, because talk about a guy whose brand has been amazing. The Jumpman brand, has just... it's taken off. I mean, if you remember in 1985 when the first Jays came out, I mean, nobody thought we were going to end up collecting those things. My wife definitely didn't think it would become an addiction to me, and it is. And my son now has it. 13-year-old has been bit by the Jordan bug. And we live in Beaverton, Oregon, home of Nike. And in fact, half of my friends work for the Jumpman brand. So when I see them, I look down at their shoes and I'm like, man, I hate you. Because they've got like limited edition Tinkers on. And, people right now, I've just lost them as I talk about my shoe fetish. But, the one thing about Jordan is we just saw in the last week, he announced his partnership with a NASCAR great. So you have the Jordan brand combined with NASCAR and Bubba Wallace. I mean, just amazing branding and amazing leaders. I mean, if you look at MJ leads the way in being a leader. And let's talk about this, if you don't mind. Did you catch Last Dance before I hop into this? And did you watch the Last Dance series?
I did.
Okay, good. So MJ caught a lot of heat before that came out. And they said, oh, it's going to make Jordan look like he's going to look poorly. And I said, that's funny, because I don't think it did. I thought it showed his leadership, because just like Mamba, who unfortunately we lost in late January, who still, I'm almost going to get teary-eyed about it because I love that man. Losing Mamba, but Mamba said the greatest thing. Somebody who said, there's no I in team. And he said, there is in win, mother. And I was like, that's my man, right? So Jordan, the same way. He didn't want to lose. And he had this team and this drive, and he had these guys surrounding him. And yeah, he's hard on his rookies, but I think a good leader is hard. You're not able to be easy on everybody. Easy is how you lose. Easy at taking plays off doesn't win. And there's a reason why Kobe has a bunch of rings on his hand and Shaq has a bunch of rings on his hand. And unfortunately, Allen Iverson doesn't. And it's about how hard you want it. How bad do you want it? You could say you want it bad, but just like in sports, everything is your mindset, right? Successful mindset starts when people don't see what you're doing on the court. What Kobe did off the court is what separated Kobe from the rest of the bunch. What Jordan did off the court separates the rest of the bunch. What Gary Vee, Grant, what you do off-site, what people don't see is the stuff that's not pretty. It's not fun. It's not sexy. You don't need a camera on it. So how do you get people to get to that mindset? What's your advice for people to take it from, I want to be great, right? You hear it. I'm sure you do. Hey, Glenn, I want to be great. I want to be famous. I hear that all the time. Obviously, being an agent and working in media, that's something you probably do here. I want to be famous. I want to be What is your advice to people to actually take the steps to be that?
Yeah, the biggest piece of advice I'd give right out the gate is stop trying to shortcut the process. Step one, right then and there. I mean, there is a reason success always leaves clues. There are, especially nowadays, we have access to everyone, man. We have access to so much information. How did Gary do it? How did Grant do it? How did Kobe do it? How did MJ do it? We've got things like The Last Dance where we can see behind the scenes, right? We can learn. And I see these, I don't even want to say young people. I just see people that see that and they're like, okay, I want the end result. I just don't want to do all that other stuff in the middle, right? So how do I shortcut that? Maybe I could hire someone else to do the thing and I won't do the thing, and then I could just get paid for them to do the thing. And I'm like, dude, you're crazy. There's no shortcuts to the top. So that would be my biggest piece of advice. Stop trying to shortcut it. Put in the work. Dude, I go to bed at 11:30 at night. I get up at 3:50 in the morning. I sleep 4 hours and 20 minutes. I take care of my 7 kids. I take care of my company. I travel the United States, and I'm just barely scratching the surface. I understand I've got another 10, 15, 20 years of this grind right here, and I'm ready for that. I'm not trying to shortcut it. I'm trying to win.
Wow, that's like the win. I guess we're going to go off on that mic drop. You're going to go off like MJ on that final shot. Let's do that. I like that. That's how we're going to end it. So before you go, got like 30 seconds here. Tell everybody how they can find you, connect with you, and learn more, because you are one motivating dude that I want to have back on our show. And plus, you got emotional about my boy Kobe and Mamba, and I love anybody who gets emotional about that man, because I'm looking at his book across from my studio here. If it's not MJ, it's Kobe, and and Jeter. I'm a huge Derek Jeter fan, but Kobe's we don't have the Mamba with us, but he's in spirit, and you see him on a court everywhere. You see all the athletes, and I got to give a shout out to Dame Lillard, who put out an amazing tribute song to Kobe, and he's made videos, and all these fans of Dame Lillard and Kobe are putting out music videos. Dame made his music available free for anybody to download and use everywhere, which is unbelievable for anybody to use. We might be using it on our show soon, but check that out. So how can folks connect with you, Glenn?
Man, they can go to glennlundy.com. That basically links to all my stuff, my Facebook, my Instagram, all of that. So I'd love for you to connect. I'd love you to join my Rise and Grind group. That would all be awesome. And as far as Kobe, man, dude, him and I, our birthdays were 5 months apart. Like, he was my guy. We graduated high school the same year. I was a Lakers fan. He was my dude. Devastating. But I love the way the guy went out. He went out on a helicopter around people with his daughter on his way to coach and give back to his community. And that's all I can say is thank you, God, for taking my man out the right way.
Yeah, it's just tough. It's It's not the first athlete we've lost, but it's the first one that I was emotional about. Still am.
Same here.
I got goosebumps right now talking about the man. I was in tears. We are season ticket holders to the Portland Trailblazers, and we had to go to a game that night. We ended up having dinner with a player from the Trailblazers that evening, and just powerful, just emotional to see fans in an arena and being in an arena that night and paying tribute to a man. As a Blazer fan, paying tribute to a great Laker, and Lakers are not our friends, but talent respects talent, and the man was next level. And seeing Carmelo as emotional he was, that was a tough day for us. So, Glenn, I want to thank you for joining our show today. It's been great. Everyone else, stay tuned for our next guest after these commercial messages. Welcome to the Point. We're back for our final segment of the day, and I'm excited. They always say you save the best for last, but it's hard. Our last segment, we were talking about the great Kobe. I mean, come on, Kobe Bryant. How can you not say that segment was awesome? But I'm excited for this one. Now, I've known our next guest for a couple of years, and it was amazing. When I first interviewed him, there was a little rinky-dink, pathetic, sad Google Hangout called Social Hangout. That's right, that yours truly did. And I interviewed our next guest at LinkedIn World Headquarters a long time ago in a galaxy far away. And I geeked out to meet this person because when you talk social selling and how to use LinkedIn, and mind you, this was a few years ago when LinkedIn, they weren't even acquired yet. They were just LinkedIn, standard LinkedIn, not Microsoft LinkedIn. They were just LinkedIn, the amazing company everybody was looking at. So I can't wait to bring on this next guest. So let's welcome to our show today the wonderful and my good friend, Coca Sexton. Coca, how you doing, bud?
Doing wonderful. Thank you for having me, Eric.
It's good to be here, man. It's good to have you here on the show. It's good to see my good buddy. You're out there killing it in everything you do. You are a marketing guru, but let's get in our time machine and go back. LinkedIn. Let's talk about LinkedIn as a whole. You worked for them for a number of years. You were basically the face of social selling. Let's face it. You and a few other folks are I always call you the godfather of social selling. It doesn't really matter the platform, but when we talk about social selling, something that we all do every day and using social, this was back in the day, folks, when people were like amazed that you could use Twitter to get clients or Facebook to draw traffic and LinkedIn to draw traffic. And before people were getting hit on in LinkedIn InMail or between when you took a connection from somebody you didn't know and 2 minutes later they were selling you something. That LinkedIn, if we remember that LinkedIn, that's the LinkedIn we were. So Coke is kind of the godfather. So tell us, I want to know what your thoughts are on watching this amazing platform and social selling as we know it. Was it like 4 years ago, 5 years ago? It feels like forever. It has to be over 5 because I've lived in Oregon for 4. So it's probably 6 or 7 years. Wow, that's a long time. Holy crap.
All right, yeah.
Wow, that's a long time ago. All of a sudden it feels old. That's why we look so gray here, right? Holy crap.
That's true.
Sorry, folks, we have to have these moments. But what's your thoughts watching social selling go from when you were out there? Remember everybody getting on here going, social selling it's fake. You used to see the arguments everywhere, right? And now it's like,
oh yeah.
Now social selling is selling.
I was going to say, I think that it is just selling. And going back in time, I remember, and like it's very nostalgic. I try and think back to it, but the earliest days, I had so many haters because it was so contrarian to this idea of salespeople dialing for dollars all day, and I was providing an alternative. And all of the gurus, the sales trainers that had basically built their entire livelihood around this idea of passing gatekeepers and cold calling would look at me and say, oh my gosh, this guy's a hack. He doesn't know what he's doing. And, fast forward just even a couple of years after that, I realized I was onto something, which eventually is what led me into LinkedIn.
Yeah. I mean, and that's true. When you look at it, I mean, you were a keynote at Dreamforce. I mean, you were on a stage with some pretty big names. Dreamforce is huge. I don't care who you say. Anything that has 250,000 people attend it and shuts down downtown San Francisco, I'm going to say that's a big deal. And you were on there, and you're right, you have haters. I mean, who didn't during that time? I think we all did. Or you were part of the gang that was hating. I don't know. It could be. I don't know. Maybe the host of this show was one of those guys. I don't know. His multiple personalities are showing right now. But, it's
the beauty is that most of them have come around now. I think
true.
Now, social is so ingrained in the sales methodology, and and as more than it ever was before. And if I even had a small piece of moving that needle, there's no way like I was a major, kind of force behind it, but I know I had an effort into it, and it's exciting to see how social selling really is just sales now.
It is.
The same way that people are saying account-based marketing or ABM, is just going to be, marketing moving forward. Like you give it a name to give it some importance, to put a spotlight and draw some attention and build out the kind of thought process around it. But eventually it is just part of the bigger whole anyway.
Yeah. And that leads us to something that's big in 2020, Coca. And one of those things is building your personal brand, right? There's so many brands out there that are well known. But we saw it, and we'll pick on Salesforce just because I think they've always done marketing pretty well. And you look at their leader, their fearless leader and founder, Mark Benioff. Mark still runs his own handle, right? So there's that separation. But everybody who knows SaaS or lives in the Silicon Valley, and if you're in business, you should know who the heck Mark Benioff is. You look at Mark Benioff, he is the face, he's the brand. So he's built a good personal brand, and Salesforce stands alone. Or you look at other companies and they haven't. And I think that there's a huge gap with a lot of people right now, not understanding that you can have a brand, but you need to also be yourself, have some sort of personal image. So when they look at it, you go, oh, that person. And there's a lot of people that you look at brands that do that. And I'll give them compliments right here. John Burroughs is one of them. He's amazing. Morgan Ingram, who you just recently were, interviewed. Same thing. And you, Coca Sexton, no matter where you work, it's like when Coca puts a message out there, you have your following of people who've known you for years and know your work. I'm taking notes when you post because it's not some fluffy piece and you're not doing it to be like, look, hi, I'm Coca. It's, hi, I know what I'm talking about. Here's my insight. And you give data just like, oh my God, he's going to kill me. Michael Brito, there's another perfect example. Somebody, when he drops knowledge in LinkedIn, you're walking away with like a sandwich of knowledge and you're like, holy crap, I'm able to like unpack this and have to come back. I got to star Coca's post or Michael's post or Burroughs' post and be like, okay, I got to come back to this because this isn't a scroll by kind of thing. So where do you see personal branding in the business world today? Where do you see it in 2020 as we're all shooting on the same hoop because virtual world is here to stay?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of a personal brand, professional brand, whatever you want to call it, it's synonymous. It has been around forever. I think there's this idea of a personal brand. I mean, I even remember my earliest part of the career, like there were coaches and stuff out there, but I didn't understand it. So the concept of a personal brand is I think, timeless. What's happened in the last, let's just call it the last 6 months that I've seen, and why I think, talking about personal brand matters, is that there's so many people that are being displaced. So many industries that are either going away or having to adapt in this kind of pandemic environment in ways that lots of people are losing their jobs. I used to talk about personal brand as a component of social selling. You have to leverage your professional brand to fill your pipeline, yada, yada. But it all started with your personal brand. And so it was always a component of the talk track, but never of the main topic. And right now I'm happy with making this the main topic because so many people need this information. There are so many people that need to find a way to displace themselves, or I guess not displace, that are already displaced, like, separate themselves from the other thousands of people that are looking for the exact same job. And how do they put themselves out there? How do they, do they use video? Should they write? All of these things, it's foreign to them. And all they've already always been kind of accustomed to is this idea of, I have a resume and that should get me a job. But in this day and age, that resume is not going to be enough. You have to have a name behind that piece of paper that people recognize.
Absolutely. I love that you said that because that is very, very true when we talk about that you do, it's not about your resume. It's not about where you've been. Nobody really cares. At the end of the day, I've interviewed a lot of people to work for our company. And at the end of the day, I want to see how they perform, right? And it's funny because it used to be the opposite. It used to be like, oh, I'll never hire anybody who has 2 years experience and suddenly has a fancy title, right? No, those people could be top performers, and that's who you want to go with because you don't know their story. I mean, it's the same disadvantage that our fellow brothers and sisters in uniform go when they come out, right? How many recruiters sit down, and you've worked in the recruiting industry, so you know this. How many recruiters sit down and they look across and they see a veteran who served and spent maybe 3 or 4 tours and deployments, most of their 20s, they, were gone. And all of a sudden they're sitting across from you. How do you know that they're not talented? How do you know they don't have the skills when you're like, well, you don't have a job background? Well, technically you do. I mean, it's not like you were sitting around your 20s doing nothing. Yes, you were in a sandbox.
Yeah.
You and I both have that as experience, but somebody gave both you and I an opportunity. So I think that's where personal branding and telling your story is where people need to be now, and understanding, oh, there's a story behind it. Because I could go tell you the story of a million veterans that I see online, and I'm like, I love their story because you see it. People, I'm a major getting out of the Army, and I'm looking for ... And you start putting it out there, and then you put the feelers out, and you're like, look, these guys are doing work. And I think that's a struggle because people don't try to build their personal brands anymore. They're like, oh, I got to get, if I'm on LinkedIn, I need to look this way. And they forget that people look at all your social. It's not just LinkedIn. It's Twitter. It's how you present yourself on Facebook. It's kind of having your messaging go across, but not being the same everywhere. That rule still applies.
Yeah.
So
I also think that there's, a component of people knowing they have a personal brand or knowing they need to build it and just not knowing how to go about it. And my argument to that, or my rebuttal to that, is that everybody has a brand. If I ask your 5 closest friends or your family, tell me about blank, whatever, insert your name, they're going to tell me who you are, and that is your brand. Now, if I ask your 5 coworkers what they think about you, that is your brand, your boss. So, everybody has a brand to some component. The problem is that these people haven't learned how to take control of it. And once you learn how to take control of your professional brand, your personal brand, you're going to catapult your career. I used to say this, there was used to talk track years ago around being the CEO of Me Inc. And, what I mean by that is each of us as individuals run our own companies. We run our own finances. We pay our bills. We are this operations guy. We're making sure that all the stuff is working around us. We have to start thinking of ourselves as a marketing department and how we're going to put ourselves out there.
I love it. That's perfect. So when we come back from the break, we're going to continue this amazing conversation with Coca Sexton. So you can learn more for businessing and businessing. Businessing. We're going to be businessing. This is why we have a Marine host, so he creates invisible words. We'll be back after the break to continue this conversation so we can make sure you understand what's going on in your business world. Coca and I are going to break down your business world and how you can make some changes, very simple, slight changes to what you're trying to do on social so your brand can be recognized and you can be taken serious. Welcome back. We're in our final segment here talking to my good buddy and guest today. I don't want to call him a social media guru, but I'm going to just because I know it'll irk him. No, just kidding. He has a great marketing mindset, one of the best out there in the Silicon Valley. And if your business is looking for help, especially if you're an SMB business, this is the guy you want to talk to. And this is why we have this show. So we're going to go back and continue our conversation with the great Coca Sexton. So that's the wrong camera. I don't know where we're going. We got cameras everywhere. There we go. Hey, it would help we put the right camera up. All of a sudden, we have Catalina Island up. You are not Catalina Island. Coca, Catalina, close.
I'd like to be there, though.
Yes, I'll join you. It's rainy and just crappy here. So I guess I should stop complaining. We both live where smoke has been part of our lives. So it's good when the smoke goes away and we see blue sky.
It is, yeah. Blue sky is amazing right now.
It did this the other day, right? We had air quality, and you guys know your bad air quality is bad air quality, like in the 400, 500s, leading the way. And for it to wake up and be like, what's the air quality index? And, our little Amazon toy tells us it's 23. I'm like, oh my God, run outside. Breathe the air in.
Exactly.
But Koga, before you go, I want to talk about like some tips and tricks that you see with folks out there building their brands. With everybody in 2020 fighting for the same thing. And I said this to you, and you're familiar with Brian Fanzo, and we were talking about separating your message. And before, it was easy to separate your message because you kind of stood alone. And now people are out of work or people are competing for the same space. And it doesn't matter if you're a Gen Z, millennial, or our generation, you're all fighting for the same thing and you have to differentiate yourself. And so you see it on all social. More video, which you and I and Brian and many others have talked about for years. Now you're seeing it everywhere. Whether it be good or bad, there's a lot of it. LinkedIn, which I love, but there's a lot of fluffy stuff. You're not really taking away any educational out of it. What are your tips and tricks for people who are dipping their toe into the pond? They're like, okay, I'm going to give this LinkedIn thing. I'm going to try social for social business. What are your tips to those folks kind of dipping their foot in that pond? These small to medium businesses are like, cool, I can compete with the big dogs now. I can get just that small market share like you and I have always talked about. You're not going to take 100% of Nike's business. Trust me, nobody is. Under Armour and Adidas have been trying. It doesn't work. But if you got just a sliver of that business, if you're an apparel brand, a shoe brand, just to get just that much, what is your advice to
It's
those
a game
folks?
changer.
Yeah, just what is your advice to
It's a
folks
game
like
changer.
simple
Just get
things?
that thing.
Yeah, true.
So, I think, the goal is, I have a whole methodology behind this. This really falls into this idea of visibility creates opportunity. And that then gets boiled down to this creation of like omnipresence and just being everywhere at all times. And professionals, brands, what I'm doing now is helping companies that are trying to break out of obscurity. I guess that's the term that I would use. They have a great platform. They have product market fit. They just have no one actually promoting them to get into the masses. It's all word of mouth. And so, that's what I'm helping companies with, is breaking out of obscurity, helping them figure out what this ideal customer profile is, what the messaging needs to be around it, and then leveraging my network, if it's within that wheelhouse, to start helping promote it. Within the idea of, the branding piece of it, one of the things that a lot of these CEOs, founders, these early stage founders that have, 10 employees at most, and most of them are the engineers, how do you get them to tell their story? And they're very apprehensive, but once they get it, they're on board. How do you tell that founder story? What's the vision for what you're trying to do? And how are you helping people today? And if you can get a founder to understand those components and build that story, that is a go-to-market plan that is going to rival any of your competitors, because people are emotionally attached to what you're doing.
Shoo-wee. That was sound advice, man. I said give a couple tips. I didn't say give up the farm, man. That was good. I like it. And it's true. What you're saying is on the money. I mean, that's how people need to differentiate themselves. And, startups are one of those things that so many people just think it's easy. And I think I talk to everybody who's on this show, anybody who's made it. And I always say, why is it so many people think it's like some lucky pill? You hear that so often. They got lucky. They got lucky. They got lucky. Not knowing it takes hard work to
It's actually really sad. It's really sad when people say that, because people have even said that to me, and I am not a level of celebrity that a lot of these people are, these other people are, and I know deep down that there is no such thing as luck. Luck is a component, but it's a very small component. Yeah. You have to put in so much work for anything to even look lucky on the outset. So whenever I see success, sure, there was some luck in there. Maybe it was a chance encounter, whatever that may be, but you have to be able to put in that work.
Absolutely. So, Coco, before you go, since you've given so much amazing advice, and if people haven't Googled you or tried to follow you right now while we've been talking, and shame on you, you're supposed to be paying attention to the show. At commercial breaks, you can go follow Coco. We know the rules around here. Darn it. Come on, pay attention to the show. That's why we have sponsors. They want you during commercial time to be looking Coco up. Sponsors are like, damn it, shut Eric up. So, Coco, how can people find you and connect with you offline?
Yeah, so I guess the easiest way, cocasexton.com, the website. I am on every social platform as Coca Sexton, but if you want to reach out to me on social, I would think that LinkedIn is probably the best bet. I spend most of my time on social media on LinkedIn.
Sweet. So that's what you guys go do. Check out cocasexton.com. Go follow him on LinkedIn. Trust me, it's worth the follow. But please, if you connect with him and you came from here, say that you came from seeing him on To The Point, but don't spam him. Please don't spam. I beg you. If you're going to send a message to one of our guests on LinkedIn, please don't be the guy after or girl spamming. Nobody wants that. Nobody. None of us want that on LinkedIn. We promise you we don't want that. So, Coca, I thank you, bud, for coming on. We need to get you back on. I'd love to have you on monthly and get some of your business tips, because I think people need it. You are an icon when it comes to it. I know you're humble. It comes with your background of being a military guy. But you are truly one of those guys that I know I always still look up to when it comes to what you're doing. You're ahead of the curve. You know what's going on because you're one of the OGs, bro. So it's great to have you on. Everybody else, go follow the great Coca Sexton. Check him out, cocasexton.com. Coca, thank you so much for joining us today, and have yourself a great rest of your week.
No, thank you, Eric.
I want to thank today's guest for joining us on this amazing Tuesday show. It was a good one for sure. So thank you again to both our guests, Glenn Lundy and the amazing Coca Sexton. Remember, you can go check out both those guys on their websites. Follow them on social, ask them questions, and make sure you're working with them because those are two incredible individuals with amazing stories. And we'll have them both back on the show soon. And remember, if you have a comment or concern, make sure that you email us at hello@tothepointtv.com. Follow us on all the socials on Twitter and Instagram, tothepointtv. On I said Instagram, so don't go to Instagram and Twitter and follow us there. Follow us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and YouTube at To The Point with Eric Mitchell. That's easy. That's where you go. And as always, you can watch us weekdays on Biz TV at 5 p.m. Eastern live, and then on replays, head over to BizVod and look us up. And we're right there, To The Point with Eric Mitchell, and you can catch up on every show that you've missed. As always, on behalf of our entire team here at To The Point, I'm Eric Mitchell. Be safe, be strong, be smart, and God bless America.
Let's get to the point with Eric Mitchell. Let's get to the point with Eric Mitchell. We gon' talk about sports and the politics. You gon' hear what you've been needing and then you're dismissed. Let's get to the point with Eric Mitchell. Let's get to the point. Sit and enjoy. This is Eric Mitchell, he the host of the show. Get to the point. He is the voice. We needed this, something more. This is a daily show that's known for politics and the sports. Ain't no limit to whoever you may see at this point. To celebrities, Eric he's beast in the joint. As a veteran, put him at ease, then anoint. Every conversation can never be disappointed. Whether tragic or it's happy, Eric will cover whatever's happening. Whether it be a gymnast, toe tapping, talking about nearly any athlete, not taking a back seat. You're never gonna get it past T. Everybody running from it, it's a stampede. But he's on it like this man who took that knee. Mr. Mitchell's way too crafty. Let's get to the point.